Hello, I'm Frank Kanchi. This is The Wave. As Thailand's northern provinces suffer from massive flooding, the government must take immediate action to strengthen water management. The World Bank has announced 3 platforms to help Thailand achieve sustainability across different sectors. Joining me now is the country director for Thailand and Myanmar of World Bank, Melinda Good. Thank you for your time. Fantastic to have you on the show, Melinda.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so at the beginning we talk about, of course, those 3 platforms and how significant are the World Bank's platform to help Thailand reach a standard level of sustainability. So how significant is that?
Thank you so much. So, Frank, in our conversations with the Thai government, we've really focused on the things that should help Thailand move on to a growth trajectory, right? To continue the success over the last generations, moving out of poverty, aiming towards high income status. But that means dealing with climate issues, doing it in a way that is just and equitable, and always keeping in mind how to help the competitiveness and innovation to grow for everybody. So this is how we came up with these 3 platforms, and we've done it together with the government, with private sector, and with the NGO community. So we want to focus our work around sustainable finance. So this is blue, green, and carbon finance, finding a way to deal with the transition that Thailand has made a commitment to be net zero by 2065. And this means reducing emissions by 30%, right? How to do that in a way that not the entirety of that burden falls on the government budget. In a very wealthy country, the fiscal space might allow for that whole transition to be financed. But in Thailand, we need to find market-based solutions. So that means innovation, right? And it means spurring innovation, which in the long term is a good thing. The second platform is around sustainable and inclusive cities. So Thailand, more than anywhere else in the world, has the economy concentrated in one city, here in wonderful Bangkok, where we're sitting, which is good. Conglomeration means innovation focuses in a particular space. But to grow the economy and have equitable opportunities for everyone, we need to take advantage of these poles of activity that are happening around the country and get the investments, the financing, the infrastructure, and the education in place. So this is the second platform. That was also the focus of our last report that came out in July. And then the third platform is around innovation. And so this is looking at infusing technologies here in Thailand, spurring innovation, also competitiveness, which is not always easy to do. And I often say, coming to Thailand, fairly new, the problems Thailand is working on are the last mile problems, right? To bring the last group of people out of poverty. These are the tough ones. A lot of the reforms Thailand has already done with great success. And so with these 3 platforms, we want to help push to the next level.
So as what you said, the collective support, not from NGO, not from World Bank, and also the government support there are very important to take Thailand to the goal of sustainability. But one question I have to ask before we get into flood management, because of course, World Bank has been here for many years to help. And last year, I talked to the vice president of World Bank too. So what's your concern here? Is it about the budget issue? Is it about the weak performance of the economy? Or it's just sluggish movement from the government side? What's the concern?
Well, so like I said, Thailand is at this position where if you look at the multi-generational success story, right? Years ago when the World Bank first came to Thailand, 75 years ago, what we were doing was what we do to help low-income countries. So we help build some of the major dams in the country, some of the major roads. Now Thailand is at upper middle income status, right? And so that means the needs for Thailand are different. And it also means shifting to that growth path is that much harder. Like the easier stuff has been done, if I can put it that way, right? And so what we're seeing now is Thailand had grown at 7% during the boom years. But since before the pandemic, the growth has slowed down significantly. Now, it's a combination of having been hit by the pandemic in the structure of Thailand's economy, which is heavily dependent on tourism. That's taking longer to bounce back. Thailand is a little bit behind its peers in East Asia in bouncing back from that, but tourism is recovering. So this is part of it. Part of it also is the structural transformations that are necessary to shift into high income status and to be really competitive, to really take advantage of the green economy in a way that's sustainable, requires some reforms that are tough. right? And so this is a little bit of the conversation about deciding how the government can do that in a way that pushes the agenda, makes sure that the vulnerable are not being left behind, and getting the balance right, which is not easy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And as what you said, right now, Thailand's government has that impetus of the digital wallet scheme or cash now to help those people, vulnerable groups, that they could get immediate support there. But how about the long term? Of course, we talk about the long term collaboration, the long term growth there, which we have to talk about the flooding management.
Sure. Yeah.
Because this is one part, of course, a very important part of sustainability goal in Thailand. As in we see, of course, as in my introduction, that northern part of provinces right now, they are suffering now because of the flooding management. So how would you say about the collaboration between World Bank and government? Because of course we know there are some collaboration efforts in Ayutthaya province and other parts. So what's the long-term project here?
Absolutely. So the flood management, as you say, is a key part of the sustainability agenda, and something we're talking about with every level of government, right? From the Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Finance, and others. It's also a topic that all partners are seized of. So all of the development partners, the academics, think tanks are working on this. Now, the World Bank, at the request of the government, did a just-in-time assessment of this current flood. So we were able to produce that in about 2 weeks. Now this is significant because the faster you can get the information on loss and damage assessments, the better you can plan. Everyone's aware of the 2011 flood, right? This was the major flood that hit all the way down the country to Bangkok. And because so much of the economy is concentrated in Bangkok, in 2011, that cost over 5% of the GDP, right? So that was a huge hit. So all the planning that needs to be happening now should be both to adapt for and mitigate against this happening in the future. Now, the government has in place a series of plans 1 through 9 for this. And so it's a matter of a discussion about how can we support the government to get going ahead on implementing these plans. This is particularly for the Chao Phraya flood basin, right? Which has like 65% of the Thai economy is in that flood basin. The floods this year in our initial damage and loss assessment will cost about $1 billion.
Yeah.
So this is less than 1% of GDP. But when you look cumulatively, every year there are these kind of flood events that are costing Thailand about that amount of money. Now, if you do nothing about that, that means the government is kind of self-insuring this, right? Because every year it means the budget has to plan for these emergency interventions. What we're doing now, talking with the government, is about starting to do the infrastructure investments for the Chao Phraya that would mitigate against this. So this will cost about $2.2 billion. A mix of government budget, development partners who could bring international financing, and also the experience of this is underway, and domestic financing. The key part of this is that it's important to start doing this now, do it well, right? And so follow this well set out plan that the government has and do all of it. This is the kind of intervention that it doesn't help to dredge one canal. Water finds its way. Think about if you have a flood in your house. You can plug this hole, but water is always going to find another hole, right? And so do it now, do it well, and do all of it. Plan to do all of it, not just a piece of it. And that will really help with the flood management. Now, the flip side of that is drought management. So a portion of this discussion is also about reserving water and having the right systems for getting water out to people when we're in the dry period, which is hard to think about now while we're in the middle of a flood. But those two things are both combined in this work.
But you talk about a very, very important point here, now.
Right.
Do you think the government is doing now at this moment, no matter it's in budget or in the action or their very, very aggressive movement, they want to solve this issue immediately? Do you think
so.
the government now?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so. I think there's a big focus on this while we're in the middle of this flood season.
Yeah, and because as what you said, because we see it every year,
Right.
and of course people on the ground, those being affected, they think Of course, in Bangkok too, those Bangkokian, they think that, okay, the 2011 flooding would occur again in Bangkok. So this is how the government should intervene immediately.
And it will occur again. So also our modeling is suggesting that was once a 1 in 100 year flood is now a 1 in 20 year flood. What was once a 1 in 20 year flood is now a 1 in 5 year flood. So it's not a question of if it will happen, it's when it's going to happen.
Maybe not this time, but maybe in the near future we will see
I mean,
again.
we hope not, but
the
science shows us it will.
Right. So, of course, in the World Bank's the 3 new platforms, we talk about sustainability in cities, in finance. One caught my attention is about carbon finance. Of course, you talk about that Thailand has to reach net zero by 2065. This is not that ambitious goal, but Thailand has to reach it at the end. Do you think how this carbon finance would help in terms of this goal?
Sure. So this is something also that the government has clear plans on. There's a couple of ways to think about carbon finance. So as I was saying at the beginning, if you were an infinitely wealthy country, you could finance this entire transition out of government budget, right? But government budget is tax revenue, right? Which also, no government really, and Thailand certainly won't be able to finance this out of tax revenue alone. We estimate that it would cost a staggering $11 trillion to reach net zero. But the good news is that also our estimates show that there's over $630 billion of climate finance available in the world. And so Thailand can tap into this. Now, when you're talking about carbon finance, it's often useful to think of it in 2 buckets. So one piece of it is carbon pricing. Sometimes it's called carbon taxing, right? And so this means having a structure in place to use the revenue collection mechanism in a way that supports the green transition, right? So often it's thought of as a price on petrol or diesel, but there's many more subtle things, and the government has a plan for rolling this out in a way that also will protect the most vulnerable, because you don't want the entire cost of this on the poorest, right? But that's just one piece, right? The carbon pricing or carbon taxing. The other piece is the voluntary carbon markets. And so this is where it is possible to issue carbon credits. So they can be either from the adaptation or the mitigation side. So you can do carbon credits that come out of forests, right? And you can do carbon credits that come out of move between less clean to green sources of energy. Now, why is this useful? There's a domestic market for carbon credits in Thailand, because Thailand is a big country, but the real ability to access that money for carbon finance is in the international markets.
Yes.
And for this, what we're talking with the government about doing is finding simple ways to aggregate benefits from moving from less clean sources of energy to more clean. And you can sell these then in the international market if they're priced and certified according to international standards. And this is a market that Thailand actually led on when the idea of voluntary carbon markets first came out. Now, competitors in the region are starting to get into it faster. And so the government and the private sector are both interested in ramping up the access to these carbon credits.
Right. So it means that, of course, we have regional competitors in the region. In ASEAN, people, all those countries, they really want to get ahead, no matter in carbon credit market. So, of course, as what you said, Thailand needs to hasten the movement.
And because Thailand knows how to do this. Thailand has a good-sized domestic market and actually did one of the first international offerings. But it's about systematizing it and ramping it up. And there's also sustainability-linked bonds. So our colleagues who work in the International Finance Corporation, which is our sister organization, also recently supported private sector issuance of sustainability-linked bonds. So more of that can be done also to have it coming from the public sector side and the private.
Right. And another issue we have to talk about actually is the economic performance of Thailand. Of course, we understand that for some ministers in Thailand, they talk about the middle income trap. Actually, Thailand has been trapped in this situation maybe for decades because, of course, Thailand's government wants to move the country to the high income country here. But as what you see, of course, you observe this, this region for years. I just want to understand how Thailand can really get up, elevate itself to high-income country.
Yeah. Now, so Thailand currently we're projecting is growing at about 3.5%.
Yes.
And the government has a goal of being a high-income economy by 2030. That would mean growing at 7% or higher over that period, which is that means a pretty significant shift in the economy. Now, how to get there? So the World Development Report that the World Bank put out is on the middle income trap. And so readers may want to take a look at that. But it proposes 3 stages to think about for this. So it's called investment, infusion, and innovation, which all sounds very nice, right? Let me break it down a little bit, what it could mean for Thailand. So the idea is that lower income countries focus on investment. So this is what Thailand did in the early days, right? Very good planning came from the government to invest in roads, in dams, in all the things to just get the economy lifted up, right? In some ways, that's the easy part. Then the second stage, which is lower middle income countries, usually start to do infusion. And this is how can countries bring in technology from outside, infuse it into their systems, right? So Thailand also did quite a bit of this if you look at the automotive industry and other industries in Thailand. The trick to getting out of the middle income trap is then looking at innovation. So how can what comes into the economy get so embedded in the way the systems work here that it can also become part of Thailand's export basket and how it moves forward, right? And if you look at high-level services, Thailand's share of high-level services in its export basket is much lower than its neighbors, right? So there's more to be done on this innovation side. But this is difficult because it means also looking at making the economy more competitive, right? And in a way that is disruptive, but not so disruptive that the major players in the economy aren't also able to continue their job provision, their service provision, because it is kind of existing companies that are driving the economy. So this is not easy to do. I'm not saying that it's easy to do, but it is something I know the government's focused on and needs to remain focused on in order to get out of this middle income trap.
What does Thailand lack of at this moment? You talk about innovation.
Well, so there's 2 things. Innovation really is about creating a playing field for competitiveness. And so when you look at the structure of the economy, there's a concentration in large firms. And I know there is focus by the government and by the private sector and the financial sector to try to make it more possible for new innovators to come into the market. Now, that doesn't mean, sometimes that's viewed as winners and losers. So if you're an established company and you have kind of a lock on the market, are you open to making it more competitive so newcomers can come in? So you could view it as a zero-sum game. But in most cases, in economies that do this, and even in the industries that have been the most innovative in Thailand, newcomers coming in, the big companies are already thinking of these ideas as well. And like together, you can move up the technological value chain. So that's the idea behind this. But talking about it in a way that it will allow for the changes to the rules about competition, financing, and access to technology that will open it up and allow the existing companies to keep producing as they are is the trick to this. But that's one big piece that needs to happen. The share of the market and the openness for SMEs is smaller here. This is actually going to be the topic of our next Thailand Economic Monitor that comes out in January. And so we'll have both economic analysis that's coming out of our work with the government. So this is a shared agenda with the government. And we will have with us some real innovators in the SME space who will participate.
I call your word there, actually, 7%. That's not that easy to get. Because
no, it's very difficult.
It's very difficult because, as what you said, actually, we have, World Bank already released the East Asia Pacific and Pacific Economic Report there. And alongside with that, of course, inside we talk about Thailand in 2024, the whole year projected GDP growth 2.4%. Next year, 3.0%. We haven't reached half of the 7%. So no matter it's of course, the weak performance from the neighboring powerful economy, China, global tensions,
Yeah.
new innovations, technological change there. So how should Thailand really reach that goal? It's really difficult, isn't it?
Well, I think there's three things to think about in terms of the neighborhood, right? So one is shifting trade and investment. So Thailand and other neighbors like Vietnam have done a good job at becoming connector countries,
Yes.
right? So as this is another way to look at what you were talking about, the politics and the geopolitics, right? So as exports maybe shift away from one major partner to another, right? More exports have come and investment has come into Thailand, right? So this is one thing that Thailand can do is keep trying to capitalize on this. I mean, Thailand is a major trading partner of the United States and the European Union, as well as being a major trading partner of China. And being a connector between those things is important. The second is how to think about the slowing growth in China, right? So the growth in China is slowing a little bit. Now, you could think about that in terms of, will it mean less investment coming into Thailand from China? Could be, maybe could not be. Important for everyone to take a look at their business planning as well as for the government. It could also mean more competition with China, right, as this happens. And then the third is on technology that you mentioned. And this is another one that can be a double-edged sword. I mean, I think the changes in AI and robotics and other parts of this industry, Thailand wants more of that, right? Yeah. Thailand has a digital strategy. Yeah. What's important to do, and the government is think through what that means for the current structure of the labor force. And Thailand is doing some good advanced planning when you take into account not only how technology may or may not change manufacturing, agriculture, and other sectors that are big employers, but also how to factor this in with the other mega trends like aging. So this is really important. And then also when you think through how to take advantage of the technological innovations in Thailand, one of the things we're trying to do for the World Bank is we have a big hub here. So we have people based here who are managing our operations all across Asia. So from China all the way to India. And one of the things we're trying to do is connect innovators here with potential customers in South Asia. And so this is another way to get ahead of these trends that you mentioned that came out in the regional competition report.
Yeah, and what you said is very important. It's about the connections with countries or stakeholders, important stakeholders in the region. Of course, I talked to Australian special envoy for Southeast Asia. Of course, some Southeast Asian countries, they really want to connect with Thailand too.
Absolutely.
And new foreign direct investment is very important.
Very.
What do you think about Thailand's economic policy at this moment? For example, those very short-term policy here, do you think it's practical at this moment? Because, of course, we talk about long-term. Right. Long-term is very important, but short-term impetus there, incentives are really important too. But how about Thailand's government's focus here? What do you think about it?
Well, as you said, it's always a mix between short-term and long-term policies and incentives, right? Any government has to do that. And the short-term incentives are not bad in and of themselves, right? It's always a balance between how much is this going to cost versus how much growth you may get out of it. And it's likely that the current incentive policy will lead to some increase in the short-term growth. But as you say, it won't answer the longer-term issues. There could be some upsides from this, increasing digitization. All of this is good. Then how do you balance having a conversation about those, which in any country need to happen, with making sure we don't lose sight of some of these more structural changes to get to the climate finance, the sustainability, and also this innovation, which is going to be so key to kick towards the growth levels needed to hit high income.
Right, great. Before we end this interview, a very quick question about Myanmar. Of course, you oversee Myanmar too. Yeah. So, of course, we still see those situations very desperate in this country. How would you really implement your initiative, no matter it's sustainability or the economic support there in Myanmar? What's your practical terms?
Sure. So in Myanmar, so the World Bank still has our office in Myanmar. We are providing pretty significant support that goes directly to the people of Myanmar. So it works through what we call third-party implementers, which is NGOs, UN agencies, ICRC, and others, because this fits within our fragility, conflict, and violence strategy, which says stay engaged and look for ways to reach people in conflict. So that's one piece of it. We're also doing a lot of analytical work to watch the economy.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the major public goods that we're providing to all the development partners, including Thailand, is this kind of analysis of the economy. I know that this is an important topic for Thailand as well, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a very long border with Myanmar. And I've had good conversations with the Thai government about the aid that Thailand itself is also providing, which is an important piece. And of course, the ASEAN meets and discusses Myanmar as well. The economy is not looking good. It'll be 1% or less growth, which translates down into increasing vulnerability and poverty in a country where already more than half need humanitarian assistance.
Yeah.
We will continue to provide this support and really focus on trying to have livelihood support for people so that they're not reliant just on humanitarian support. Yeah.
So do you think the situation on the ground right now, is it possible to have put your support, put World Bank's initiative on the ground right now? Or,
in terms of sustainability?
yes.
Yeah.
Or you talk about humanitarian support there.
Yeah, so when you're in a situation of active conflict, the balance that you and I were just talking about between immediate interventions and longer term necessarily shifts towards immediate interventions. That being said, and I've worked in a lot of conflict situations, so that being said, we want to make sure that any aid that we're providing is sensitive to the sustainability issues. So for example, with some of this support that we're providing, it could be food handouts, but it also is trying to help farmers plant again. And so to the extent that that can be support that's more likely to be the kind of seeds and farming assistance that will survive extreme climate events, then it's keeping a focus on the sustainability issues as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Not
thank you
easy.
for your time. I know not
I know,
easy.
and our heart
but
goes out to all
yes.
people. Yeah.
Yes, but of course, the World Bank initiative, not just in Thailand, in this region, in Southeast Asia, can really connect people together and, of course, put the economic support together in Thailand too.
That's true. And Thailand is very focused on this. So Thailand is hosting the World Bank IMF annual meetings in 2026. Which some people say to me, what is that? Is that just like a corporate board meeting? No, this is sort of like the World Economic Forum, but it's for international financial institutions. It's kind of like an economic Olympics.
Yeah.
And every third year, it is in one of the member countries. Thailand owns the World Bank, right? Thailand is an owner of the World Bank.
Yeah.
And so Thailand will be one of only 2 countries that's hosted this meeting twice.
Wow.
The reason we have Queen Sirikit Center, it was partly originally built for the 1991 annual meetings. So this will be a big deal, like all finance ministers and central bank governors, as well as the heads of major international corporations, the big tech firms will be here. So we're working with the Thai government also to make sure that their goals, which include a lot of these sustainability goals, are in their thinking for what they want to showcase. Because Thailand has a great success story to tell too.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the challenges, but I've worked in a lot of countries where everybody looks to Thailand as a model of how to get to upper middle income status, right? And so many, many times in other countries, I've also brought Thai officials to try to give technical assistance. And so this is an opportunity for Thailand to showcase this as well.
Yeah, so it's what you said about the 2026 World Bank meeting, that is very important for Thailand because it showcased the economic performance. But I think this is also a test for Thailand too, because before that, Thailand has to perform well before every country leader or from the international financial institutes head will come here to see how Thailand performs. So that's very important. So today, thank you for your time. Because of course, we got a lot of initiative, got a lot of insightful conversations about how Thailand can grow towards sustainability for the flood management and the regional initiatives too from your side. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much.
So today, of course, we have the country director for Thailand and Myanmar of World Bank, Melinda Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More news to come.